Imagine the sea stretching before you, alive with warships, sails billowing as two of the most powerful men in history prepare for a fight that will determine the future of Rome. But this isn't just a clash of armies, it's a battle of love, betrayal, and ambition. On one side, Octavian, the shrewd political operator determined to crush his rival. On the other, Mark Antony, a soldier torn between his duty to Rome and his love for Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. In the middle of it all stands Cleopatra herself, a woman whose decisions will seal the fate of nations. This is the Battle of Actium, where the fate of the Roman Republic will be decided. So how did a love affair and a power struggle culminate in one of the most decisive battles in history? What led Mark Antony, once a hero of Rome, to face off against Octavian in a naval showdown that would ultimately determine the future of the empire? And what role did Cleopatra play in this momentous event? Let's start from the buildup to understand the battle that occurred. The year is 31 BC, and Octavian is not yet the emperor he will one day become. For now, he is Rome's master manipulator, Caesar's adopted son, and the man destined to restore order to a fractured republic. In his mind, there's no room for rivals, especially not Mark Antony. Once his ally in the Second Triumvirate, Antony has become the greatest threat to Octavian's power. Octavian is not a warrior like Antony, but he is a master of public opinion. He knows that the people of Rome are suspicious of Antony's relationship with Cleopatra. He plays into that suspicion, spreading rumors, twisting Antony's image from that of a heroic general into a man controlled by an exotic foreign queen. He doesn't just attack Antony, he attacks Cleopatra. He declares war on her, framing the battle as one for Rome's very soul. For Octavian, Actium is not just a military engagement, it is the culmination of years of political maneuvering. He has played a long game, and now he stands on the verge of ultimate victory. Mark Antony is a man caught between two worlds. He has spent his life fighting for Rome, standing by Julius Caesar's side, and now, through the twists of fate, he finds himself at odds with the Roman people. But this isn't the Rome Antony knew. The city he once loved has turned against him, poisoned by Octavian's lies. To Antony, Octavian is a cold, calculating politician, unworthy of Caesar's legacy. Unlike Octavian, Antony sees himself as a man of action, a true soldier of Rome. But his heart belongs to Cleopatra, and this is what has put him at odds with his homeland. Antony's relationship with Cleopatra is more than love. It's a political alliance, a merging of two great powers. Antony's dream is not just to rule Rome, but to create a vast empire with Cleopatra by his side. But as he prepares for the inevitable clash with Octavian, doubts creep in. His forces are weary, the soldiers are uncertain, and he knows that his fate is tied not just to his military skill, but to the decisions of Cleopatra, who is as much a part of this battle as any general. Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, has one goal: to protect her kingdom and her legacy. She is a queen by birth, but a ruler by sheer will and cunning. For Cleopatra, Rome is a threat to her nation's independence. Her affair with Julius Caesar once gave her the hope of securing Egypt's future, but after his assassination, it was Mark Antony who became her partner in both love and power. To Cleopatra, Antony is not just a lover, he is the key to ensuring that Egypt remains powerful and free. The Roman Senate and the people might see her as a foreign threat, but Cleopatra is a queen who knows how to navigate the treacherous waters of politics. She has outlived rivals, played the game of power, and survived the ever-shifting tides of fortune. But now, as Octavian declares war, she knows the stakes have never been higher. This is a battle for more than just power. It's a battle for survival. Cleopatra must weigh her love for Antony against the future of her son, Caesarion, who she sees as the true heir to Julius Caesar. The war that is coming isn't just Rome against Egypt. It's about her legacy, and she will do everything in her power to ensure that Egypt does not fall. As Octavian prepares his fleet for war, he knows this will be the decisive moment in his struggle for power. His trusted admiral, Agrippa, has been cutting off Antony's supply lines for months, weakening his forces. Octavian's fleet, though smaller, is better equipped and more maneuverable than Antony's larger ships. Octavian doesn't just want to win. He wants to crush Antony and Cleopatra. To him, Antony is a traitor, a man who has abandoned Roman values for the seductive allure of Egypt. Octavian's strategy is cold, calculated, and ruthless. He knows that the key to victory is not just in the strength of his ships, but in breaking Antony's spirit. In the days leading up to the battle, Octavian receives reports that Antony's forces are growing restless. Some of his officers are questioning his leadership, and the soldiers are hungry and diseased. The blockade is working, and Octavian feels that victory is within his grasp. But he also knows that Antony is a dangerous opponent. If anyone can turn the tide of battle, it is Antony. Octavian spends the final hours before the battle making sure that his fleet is ready, that every detail is accounted for. He won't leave anything to chance. The fate of Rome depends on it. As Antony stands aboard his flagship, staring out over the waters of Actium, he can feel the tension in the air. His fleet is massive, but he knows that size isn't everything. His ships are slow and the men are exhausted. Supplies have been running low for weeks, thanks to Agrippa's blockade, and the soldiers are losing faith. Some whisper that Antony should take his forces inland, where they might have a better chance of fighting on land. But Antony won't retreat, not with Cleopatra by his side. He knows that if he abandons the sea, Cleopatra's fleet will be left vulnerable. And so, against his better judgment, he prepares for the naval battle. Deep down, Antony is torn. He knows that his love for Cleopatra has put him in this position, but he also believes in the dream they share. A dream of ruling not just Rome, but a vast empire that stretches across the east and the west. He hopes that this battle will be the turning point, the moment when they can finally seize control of their destiny. But doubts plague him. He wonders if his soldiers still believe in him, if his officers trust his judgment. Antony knows that Octavian is out there, waiting, watching. And he knows that this battle is not just about ships and soldiers, it's about who will shape the future of Rome. Cleopatra stands aboard her flagship, surrounded by the splendor of her Egyptian fleet. Her ships are larger and more impressive than anything the Romans have, adorned with gold and symbols of Egyptian power. But Cleopatra knows that appearances alone won't win this battle. As she gazes out over the sea, she is reminded of the many battles she has fought, not with swords and shields, but with diplomacy and cunning. Cleopatra has survived countless political challenges in Egypt, but this is different. This time, her fate is tied to the outcome of a naval battle, and the stakes couldn't be higher. She knows that Antony is relying on her fleet to win the day, but Cleopatra also knows that if things go badly, she must be prepared to retreat. Egypt is still her first priority. If Antony falls, she must protect her kingdom and her son, Caesarion. She cannot afford to be captured or killed. If she does, Egypt will fall to Rome, and Caesarion will be in danger. Cleopatra feels the weight of history on her shoulders. She is a queen of immense power, but even queens have limits. As the day of the battle approaches, she steels herself for what is to come, knowing that whatever happens, she must be ready to act. As the dawn breaks on September 2nd, 31 BC, Octavian stands on the deck of his ship, watching as his fleet moves into position. His ships are smaller and faster than Antony's, and his men are well rested and ready for battle. Octavian knows that Antony's forces are at a disadvantage, but he's not about to take any chances. He watches as Agrippa, his trusted admiral, leads the charge. Agrippa's strategy is simple but effective. Outmaneuver Antony's larger ships, isolate them, and strike. Octavian trusts Agrippa completely. This is not a battle Octavian can fight himself, but he knows that Agrippa will deliver. As the battle begins, Octavian watches with a cold detachment. He's not a man of emotion. This is war, and war requires ruthlessness. He knows that Antony will fight hard, but he also knows that Antony's fleet is slow and vulnerable. Octavian's ships dart in and out of the fray, hitting Antony's ships before they can respond. Octavian stays calm, calculating every move. He watches as the battle unfolds, knowing that victory is within reach. As the battle begins, chaos erupts on the water. Antony stands at the helm of his flagship, shouting orders to his men. His ships are larger, but they are also slower and less maneuverable than Octavian's. Antony knows that this battle will be won or lost in the first few hours. The clash of ships is deafening. Wood splinters, metal clashes, and men scream as they fight hand to hand. Antony's heart pounds in his chest as he watches Agrippa's ship slice through the water, cutting off his fleet piece by piece. Antony knows that he must stay in control. His soldiers look to him for leadership, and if he falters, the battle is lost. But as the hours drag on, Antony realizes that Agrippa's strategy is working. His ships are being picked off one by one, and his fleet is struggling to stay together. Antony refuses to give up. He orders his ships to press forward, to break through the Roman blockade, but it's no use. The battle is slipping away from him, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. As the battle rages around her, Cleopatra watches from the safety of her flagship. Her ships are powerful, but they are also vulnerable. Cleopatra knows that her fleet cannot withstand the Roman onslaught for long. She watches as Antony's ships struggle to keep up with Agrippa's nimble vessels. Cleopatra feels a sense of dread creeping over her. She knows that the battle is going badly, and she begins to fear for her own safety. Cleopatra has always been a pragmatist. She knows when to fight and when to retreat. As she watches Antony's fleet fall apart, she makes a decision that will change the course of history. She orders her ships to retreat. Some say that Cleopatra abandoned Antony in his moment of need. Others say that she was protecting Egypt, ensuring that her kingdom would survive even if the battle was lost. Whatever the reason, Cleopatra's decision to retreat is a turning point in the battle. As her ships turn and sail away from the battlefield, Cleopatra knows that her fate, and the fate of Egypt, now hangs in the balance. When Octavian sees Cleopatra's ships retreating, he knows that victory is within his grasp. Antony has lost his greatest ally, and his fleet is now leaderless and in disarray. Octavian orders his ships to press the attack, cutting off Antony's remaining forces and preventing them from escaping. Octavian watches with a sense of satisfaction as Antony's fleet crumbles. This is the moment he has been waiting for. With Antony defeated, Octavian can return to Rome as the undisputed ruler, free to reshape the Republic into his vision of an empire. For Octavian, the battle is not just a military victory, it is a personal triumph. He has outmaneuvered Antony politically and militarily, proving that he is the rightful heir to Julius Caesar's legacy. As Cleopatra's ships sail away, Antony feels a wave of despair wash over him. He knows that without Cleopatra's fleet, the battle is lost. His men are confused and disheartened, and Antony realizes that there is nothing more he can do to save them. In a moment of desperation, Antony orders his flagship to follow Cleopatra's retreating vessels. He abandons the battle, leaving his fleet to fend for itself. Some of his men watch in disbelief as their commander flees the scene, while others continue to fight bravely, even as their situation grows more hopeless by the minute. Antony knows that his decision to follow Cleopatra will haunt him for the rest of his life. He has abandoned his men, his fleet, and his dream of ruling Rome. But in that moment, his love for Cleopatra outweighs everything else. As Cleopatra sails away from the battle, she knows that she has made a difficult choice. She has saved her fleet and ensured the survival of Egypt, but at what cost? Antony, the man she loves, has been left to face the consequences of the battle alone. Cleopatra understands the political realities of her situation. She knows that if she is captured, she will be paraded through the streets of Rome as a symbol of Octavian's victory. She cannot let that happen. She must protect herself and her son, Caesarion, who she believes is the rightful heir to Julius Caesar. As her ships sail back to Egypt, Cleopatra begins to plan for the future. She knows that the war is not over, but she also knows that the balance of power has shifted in Octavian's favor. She must be ready for whatever comes next. After the battle, Octavian wastes no time in pursuing Antony and Cleopatra. He knows that as long as they live, they are a threat to his rule. He marches his forces to Egypt, determined to finish what he started. For Octavian, this is the final chapter in a long and brutal struggle for power. Antony and Cleopatra have been defeated, but they are not yet destroyed. Octavian must capture them and bring them back to Rome as symbols of his victory. When Octavian's forces reach Alexandria, Antony and Cleopatra know that the end is near. Antony, in a final act of desperation, takes his own life. Cleopatra, refusing to be taken prisoner, follows suit. Octavian watches as the bodies of Antony and Cleopatra are laid to rest. The two lovers who once dreamed of ruling the world together are now gone, and with them, the last remnants of the Roman Republic. After fleeing the battle, Antony returns to Alexandria, a broken man. He knows that his dream of ruling Rome with Cleopatra by his side is over. His men have been defeated, his fleet destroyed, and his reputation in ruins. Antony's only comfort is Cleopatra, but even their love cannot save him from the weight of his failures. As Octavian's forces close in on Alexandria, Antony makes the decision to end his life. He cannot face the humiliation of being paraded through the streets of Rome as a defeated general. In his final moments, Antony reflects on the choices he has made. He knows that he has betrayed his soldiers, his country, and himself. But he also knows that he has lived his life with passion and honor, even if it has led to his downfall. As Octavian's forces approach Alexandria, Cleopatra realizes that her fate is sealed. She has fought for Egypt's survival, but in the end, even her intelligence and cunning could not save her from Rome's power. Cleopatra refuses to be taken alive. She will not allow herself to be paraded through the streets of Rome as a symbol of Octavian's triumph. In her final act of defiance, Cleopatra takes her own life, choosing to die on her own terms rather than at the hands of her enemies. As she holds the asp to her chest to be bitten, Cleopatra thinks of Caesarion, the son she bore with Julius Caesar. She knows that Octavian will never allow him to rule, but she hopes that her legacy will live on through him. In her final moments, Cleopatra reflects on the life she has lived. She was a queen who loved and ruled with passion and power, and though her kingdom may fall, she will be remembered as one of history's greatest figures. The Battle of Actium was not just a naval engagement, it was the climax of a story of love, power, and ambition. Octavian's cold, calculated strategy, Antony's torn loyalties, and Cleopatra's desperate bid for survival all came to a head in this defining moment. Each of them, Octavian, Antony, and Cleopatra, fought for different reasons. For Octavian, it was about securing his future as Rome's ruler. For Antony, it was about loyalty to his love and his vision of a greater empire. And for Cleopatra, it was about preserving Egypt's independence and protecting her legacy. In the end, it was not just the ships and soldiers that determined the outcome, but the decisions of these three figures. Their choices shaped the future of Rome, and with it, the course of Western civilization. The Battle of Actium marked the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. With Antony and Cleopatra gone, Octavian would return to Rome as the unchallenged ruler, taking the title of Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. For Antony and Cleopatra, Actium was the final chapter in a story of love and ambition, a story that has captivated the world for centuries. But more than that, it was the moment that solidified the future of Rome, and with it, the future of the Western world.